Every time we talk about borrowing, what comes to our mind is loan. And when we talk about loan, we mean business. You cannot have a loan, you cannot get a loan or procure a loan for personal purposes. This time, we have come with a rare fact. Can you imagine that you can borrow for leisure? Can you imagine that you can borrow for non-business purposes? That is the topic of our talk. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Financial Vibes with me, Peter Calviland Serubide, and Francis Kabinoli Lugorobi. Can I borrow for non-business purposes? Is it in order for me to borrow for leisure purposes?
Thank you very much. It's very proper to borrow for non-business purposes, though many commentators on this topic discourage borrowing for non-business purposes, but they don't classify which groups of people should borrow for non-business purposes, because there are segments of society which should borrow for only business purposes, and they may only be allowed to go to their circle, the local circle or village circle, or to go to the microfinance, or to go to the MDI, micro deposit institution, or to go to the financial bank, commercial bank, or to go to a friend to borrow for non-business purposes. And the people who are living from hand to mouth, if you are living from hand to mouth and you need to improve your financial status, borrowing primarily should be for business purposes in order to increase your net worth, in order to increase your ability to feed yourself, to clothe yourself, to put a roof over your head. You should be building that potential. But then there are instances where even someone who is that capacity or who is at that level should borrow for non-business purposes. For example, there are crises or there are emergencies which arise.
Okay.
And many individuals are forced to borrow. And it's prudent to borrow because you're saving life. There's no way you're going to reach that financial independence or prosperity if you die now. If you're sick and you don't have the amount of money to treat yourself, to treat your child, to treat your spouse, please do borrow. If you have an accident, those emergency situations whereby you are pushed into a corner, there you can borrow. Now, even in those cases, when you are borrowing, there are certain rules, financial rules to follow when you're borrowing.
Okay. I mean, because I thought necessity knows no law. So if it is necessity that has called, I shouldn't follow any rules.
Whereas necessity knows no laws, the person who's lending you the money, the institution lending you the money, has laws and rules.
Okay.
So you must follow those rules. One, ability to pay back. You must have the historical cash flows and tendencies should provide your lender the satisfaction that this person is going to pay back the amount of money they have borrowed.
Okay.
Yeah. So you must have the ability to pay back. Sometimes you may not have the collateral, especially with circles and some microfinances, but you must have the historical ability to pay back. You must have guarantors, people who can stand before your lender and guarantee that this person is of good character and intention and the ability to pay back. And if he or she fails, we are going to help him foot the bill. So in those emergencies, the working class and people who are on the lower income ladder can borrow for leisure or for non-business purposes. But the people who are allowed, who have a free card to borrow for non-business purposes are people who have financial freedom.
Who are they?
People who have financial independence and freedom should borrow, because these are people who have enough. These are people who have reached a point in life whereby their incomes, the majority of their incomes, or the largest percentage of their incomes, is from sources where they don't have to actively participate in like, for example, people have invested money in bonds, in treasury bills, in real estate, in farming, and they have companies which are, and they're just on boards of directors, and they don't have to be around for these income generating sources to produce the fruit at the end of the tunnel. So these people can borrow, and whenever such a person who has that income, and the income is in a good amount which can cover their needs and wants, this person has a free card to borrow. And many times they borrow through a process called equity release.
Equity?
Equity release. Now, these are people who have enough equity to cover their needs and wants several times over, sometimes. So if you have your wealth, it can cover your needs and wants in a year several times over and over, without you necessarily going for a day job, a 9 to 5 job. You're allowed to use that equity or those resources as collateral to release funds in form of a loan for you to buy whatever item you want. You may want something of leisure. You may want a holiday home. You may want to go on a vacation. You may want to buy a nice luxurious car. But then you have lots of money locked up in equity somewhere, in land, in shares, in bonds, in treasury bills, in name an investment in real estate. So you can use that equity as collateral in a bank, in a financial institution, and that financial institution gives you a loan, and they call that loan equity release, because the equity is helping you you are releasing the equity through the loan to buy whatever you want now. It's what we call bringing your future closer. Because many times you're working for the future, that in 20 years' time, I'll buy a good vehicle. In 20 years' time, I'll have a nice car. In 30 years' time, I'll do ABCD. But now you have the equity, so you have the equity, which you don't want to sell off now to buy whatever you want or to do whatever you want. So what you can do, you borrow against that equity. If I have my houses, for example, I have rental properties, and I want to buy a 70 million vehicle. But my rental properties, I don't want to sell them off to release the equity in those rental properties. What I can do, I can go to a bank and pledge my collateral, my rental properties as collateral, and the bank can release 70 millions to me to buy that nice vehicle I need. And I can use the proceeds from my rental properties to not only live the good life which I'm living now, but also to pay back the loan for the 70 millions. That precipitates or brings closer the fact that I'm living the life I would have lived 10 years from now, today. Okay. So that's where borrowing for non-business purposes helps, especially those who have reached a certain financial level. It helps you live the quality life you would have lived 10 years from now, today, because you don't even have surety that you'll be around in 10 years' time. So if you have the ability, if you have the resources to release that equity, borrow the money, and make sure that the money helps you in living a quality life today, not tomorrow, then please do it.
That's a wonderful one. I've just learned that I can borrow for non-business purposes. Not every time you borrow, you need to invest in your business. Sometimes you need to also invest in yourself to bring your future closer. Or under emergency, you need also to borrow to get out of the problem. Thank you very much. God bless you.